I start streaming, it goes really slow. But we do what we can, and like what happened last weekend with the Twisted Tower stream, I will just play the game and record the stream, and if it's really choppy and doesn't work, I'll just try and make a review out of what we end up with. So let's see how this goes. OBS is wanting me to sign into my own chat, which is wild. You have to remember that my gaming experience for the last 20 years has been very not online. I play games generally to sort of do stuff on my own, and have never been a super social gamer. So I'm happy, since I started this channel, it's been a sort of crash course in loads of things in terms of streaming and stuff like that. And currently I'm having that with all of this kind of stuff. Hiya Tony. We are live. We are just about live. Sorry if it's going to be a bit choppy. My internet's playing up. It seems like no matter how many times I upgrade it at this house, they never they never make it work. This is a game called Hidden Folks, so been thinking of doing this for a while, doing some short streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays where I just pick a game that I find interesting, that looks cool, and give a kind of first impression of the demo. So we're still doing Indies Under the Knife, which is a series that goes out every Thursday where I review a work in progress game that someone sends me, and partly just so I get to play some games that are a bit more polished, because this channel is based on giving feedback to developers who are still working on their games, and that means I play lots of broken prototypes, and if I just did that I would go completely insane. So I don't know if I'm going to demolish this. I quite like the look of it, so it's already kind of won me over a little bit in terms of appealingness. So let's see how it goes. So this, I think, is a hidden object game. And one of the things that's interesting is even from the start menu, there isn't any text in the game, which is a very smart move if you don't want to have to translate loads of stuff. But he says, when I click on him, there's like a little dice roll. That's interesting. I need a key for that. Do I look in my bag? I've got an inventory. I've got a map. I think that quits the level, maybe. And there's a lot of dice roll stuff here. Thanks for the tip, Nadir. Yeah, I did previously have the chat up on the screen, but I didn't want to like ruin the footage if I want to kind of chop stuff out of it later on and do reviews. So what we've got here is some sort of hidden object game mixed with some kind of D&D dice rolling mechanics, which is an interesting mix of things. Right, I need an apple. So I click on the apple, I get my little gem that means I've passed that. This guy turns two apples into something. Do I need some more apples? I think I might have already screwed the level up. Oh no, I can take them. Can I give them to him? I just have to click on him. So if I've got... So these guys have like a resource conversion. Like they turn one thing into another thing. And this guy turns apples into a key. If you've ever played a board game, like a worker placement board game, they do a lot of this in those. It's like one symbol, an arrow, another symbol. You're converting one thing into another. So it feels like they've modeled some of this on that. So I pick up the key. I get a gem because I've done that item, and then I unlock the chest, and then I get a... What is that? Sword and a four-sided dice into another four-sided dice. Interesting. Okay. Am I trying to fight him? Is that what's going on here? I get a coin. I think I've completed this area because these all have gems on it. This is a really interesting study in trying to make something that's just intuitive with no text in it at all. This game is at quite a high level of polish for a game that has like no instructional text in it whatsoever. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea. I think if you can achieve that in the game you're making, if you can make everything kind of self-explanatory and then add the text in later where you need it, then that's probably quite a good way of doing things. Yeah, I think Cyan in the chat said that looks like a club. I think you're right. There it is. I don't know what that did. There's lots of like clicking on a... Oh, that gave me some health back in my hearts down here. So I think one of the things I would say is something like that where you eat something and get a heart back. You really need to... If you've got the player's eyes on one side of the screen and clicking on something over there has an effect on the other side of the screen, you need to do something to draw their attention. So if you like... I don't know, you click somewhere and you pick up some money and the money goes up in the corner. That's one of the reasons why when money goes up in games, they often like animate it and make it go like number by number, because that movement kind of draws your eye to the corner of the screen and then you know something happened. And particularly like I'm playing on a curved screen. I don't know how big it is. It's reasonably big. And that kind of means that if my eyes are in one corner of the screen and something happens in the other corner, unless it's really flashy and there's like quite a lot of movement and change of color, then I don't notice it. It's definitely something to think about in this game or any kind of interface heavy game, really. When you've got stuff around the edge, when it changes, you need to do stuff to kind of make it really obvious. This is supposed to be a chill, just playing a game stream, but I can't help but pick these things up when they happen. Right, we have some sort of world map. I think that bonfire was where we started. So this is definitely a Souls-like because it's got a bonfire in it. And that's actually what makes a game a Souls-like. As if there's a fire. Whenever you have a game and you go camping and there's a fire, that is actually a Souls-like now. I didn't know if you knew that. Nadir asked if I lost some health when I fought the bandit. That would make sense, yeah. But I clicked on the bandit, it rolled a die. And I definitely failed it once or twice. And I'm not sure what happened there. But this probably did go down. But I don't know. It kind of not enough attention called to it when that happens, I think. Right. Where are we? We got some sheeps. Don't try this at home, guys. But it says, if you hit a sheep with a hammer 3 times, you'll get some wool. That's what that looks like, it says. Frederick asked if we give feedback on the game or are we just chilling. That's totally up to you. I would say just chill out and chat about whatever you want, if that's what you want to do. If you want to give feedback on the game, that's what then do that as well. It's totally up to you. When people make a good point about the game, I will repeat it. I might credit you, but if it's a really good point, I might not credit you. I might pretend it was my point. 'Cause I'm feeling evil. YouTube's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Can't do anything about that. Got carrot. This is kind of becomes more complex to remember which trees you've clicked on. And we've only got like maybe double the amount of trees that we had in the last level. Piggies want a carrot and then they will poo. naturally. This farmer turns milk into bones. I'm not sure how that works. This person, this hippie, turns a loot. You give them 3 loots. And a heart? And they turn it into a question mark. This one wants some flowers. You would think the flowers would just be lying around. I'm already quite interested to see what the late game of this gets like, because I could see it being like, if it gets to kind of Where's Wally, Where's Waldo levels of visual complexity, it'll be very interesting. Yeah, Frederick in the chat made a comment about the sort of outlines of things being inconsistent. I think it depends what the outline is for. Like, you have sort of outlines around the outside of an object, right, that let you know that it's a separate thing, and then you have the lines inside the object, like on this guy's clothes, that can maybe be a bit thinner, but I think it looks very cute. I think if you tried to make all the outlines really thick, then you'd lose these sorts of things, like the corn. Right, who wanted some corn? Was it you? Moo cow. Okay, moo cow. I just click them, they give me some milk. Then I can... That's some good mooing. Where is that? The farmer wants some milk to give me a bone. And then... he's changed now, so he's given me a bone. Now he wants a poo. Naturally. The pigs want a carrot, but I've only got 1 carrot. What is that? Oh, he'll give me a health potion for every apple that I give him. I can't find another carrot. Can't find another carrot. Pigs, have you considered giving me a discount? I only have 1 carrot for you. It's a very frustrating situation to get into. Because there's obviously one thing I can click on and it will give me a carrot and I can't work out where it is. This game does have speedrunning potential. I never thought of that. That is a very good point, Ayash. Sorry. Also, not... there's a lot of clicking, so sorry if my mic is picking that up. Very clicky game. Oh no, I've got the second carrot. I finally got it. So yeah, I think if there's one problem with this game so far, it's that the changes in state of like your health and your inventory don't feel strong enough. So there was a point in the last minute or two where I picked up that second carrot and it didn't register. So I always feel like when you get an item, it needs to like darken the screen slightly, bring the item up right to the middle and sort of ta-da! Like, before it goes in the inventory, and the same with losing health, because we've had a couple of moments where those things haven't noticed. But I really like it. I like the concept. I like a lot about how this looks and feels. And now all that's left is to... I feel like I've got to pick favourites now, because I've only got enough carrots for one pig. So I'm going to just observe these pigs for a while and work out which one is most deserving of 2 carrots. So we're going to have a poll on which pig to feed. I've started a poll. They're all here. That's Jeff, up in the top left. I don't know what Jeff's quality... The thing about Jeff is he's quite slow, but he has a heart of gold. And he's someone you can always turn to for good advice. Bacon Face McGee is just here in the middle. He likes to be the centre of attention. That's why he's sort of in the middle of the puddle at the moment. Who else have we got? I can't even see my own poll anymore. I've lost track. Is that Bacon Face McGee? Yeah, that's Jeff. That's Bacon Face McGee. And they're the other two. I always get them. They look very similar. The piggy don't have names, but I've just given them names. We're sort of role-playing a little bit. This is Jeff over here. Although, I think I know that the developer is trying to do a very low-text approach to this whole game. There's no text in the whole game so far, which I find admirable as a minimalism thing, and also kind of cool as a developer thing, because it means you don't have to translate stuff. But I think you would get a lot of mileage out of all of the animals and characters having a little procedurally generated name on their tab. So when I go on this farmer, he has a little name that's like picked from a pool of farmer names, you know? He could be called like Krusty Pokenhay or something. It looks like Bacon Face McGee, right? Bacon Face McGee has won. I don't know. I haven't kept track of which one is actually Bacon Face McGee, but I said it was the one in the middle, and this is the one in the middle right now. So I think Bacon Face McGee is actually an honorary title for whichever pig is in the middle. It's kind of like Mahatma, you know. There we go. All of that for a poo. Pigface. I just don't think Pigface was really working for it, you know. And thank you for joining us for this special edition of RuPaul's Pig Race. Where do we need to go? Oh, the farmer wants the poo now. You know that meme with the dude with the long hair with the purple background? Where it's like, you give me, I give you. It's this, but this farmer. He's like, you give me a piece of poo with some flies buzzing around it, and I give you, I don't know, I give you something. He gives us a coin. That's very generous. Who wants coins? This person wants flowers. See if the dog wants a coin. Hello, dog. Do you want a coin? Are you a capitalist? The dog's not a capitalist. Coin, coin, coin. No one in this world wants a coin. To be fair, maybe the coin is an inventory item for taking to another level, because this game does seem to have a structure where you can pick things up in one scene and go and use them somewhere else, which is quite interesting. And it might even be the case that some of these items, like the loot here, We don't actually have access to them in this scene, and we have to go and get them in a future level and remember to bring them back here. Now, memory is a very interesting skill to test in games, because people get very frustrated about you testing their memory unless they sort of signed up for it. But I think this could be a good game for that, because without it there's not much going on, right? We're just clicking on stuff until stuff happens, and then we have to we've already got a bit of a memory test in that when we find an object we have to remember who we saw that wanted it. So having a sort of meta layer of memory testing by having to go out to different scenes and then remember who wanted that item in another scene, that works really well for me. And if you take the kind of Where's Waldo hidden object game type format in a book, like the old books that did that, and apply it to video games, I think actually if it works the way I think it works, in that we have to find an object in one level and go and give it to someone in another level, I actually think that could work really well. I find that exciting, even though it's such a simple idea. So let's go back to the map. And yeah, our inventory is persistent between maps, so that already opens up quite a lot of stuff this game can do. I played Hidden Folks, which was a similar game like this, but a lot more simple, and I just found it didn't have enough meat to it. And I think this whole thing of having to remember to go back and give someone a particular thing, there could be a lot to that. Alex said, do the boxes break? I don't know, I clicked them a bunch of times and they didn't seem to break. But maybe there's a point at which I'll get something that does cause them to break. I don't know. So here, we're looking for a fork, a pork, an earth, and some butter or some honey. I don't know. But basically, all of the components of a lovely breakfast. Frederick was just saying that it was Frederick who pointed out the thing about the kind of inconsistent line widths around objects, and they were just saying they have a background in UX, but also English is not their first language, so this is the thing they focus on, but they don't want to come across as nitpicky, which I think is very a nice and self-aware way of putting it, Fred, because you never know, do you, when you're giving people feedback, like how it comes across. But yeah, there are a few moments when you've got a smaller object. I would say, look, when you see these crops, it feels almost like a different art style here, and the kind of thinness of these objects with that thick line on is kind of starting to warp a bit when you zoom out, isn't it? We're being very nitpicky here, but hey, kind of what we do on this channel. Sometimes it's good to have that focus, because people might just not be able to see it with their own game. But you also have to be able to step back and be able to see the wood for the trees and kind of go, okay, this is actually very attractive and appealing. Just got these couple of little imperfections with it. The horse is jumping up and down. He's very excited to see us. Do you have advice on giving advice and feedback? Yeah, I think check first is a good one. I mean, we had a bit of a sort of altercation, I would say, in our Discord this week, actually, over someone kind of giving advice, perhaps where it wasn't asked for, and in a tone that felt a bit abrupt. Yeah, I think you have to check first a lot of the time. What are these guys? They want seeds and they turn them into eggs. Okay, but we've got our one egg. Advice for giving people feedback. Check first that they want it. And I would say if you have lots of points of feedback to give someone, then have a think first about which are the most important, and either make it very clear which points you're making are the most important, or just don't talk about the less important points. Because one of the things that happens when you give people feedback, if you give people 5 pieces of feedback and there were 2 that were really important, and they can't tell which are the most important, then they're gonna just pick a random set from those 5. When you do like teaching with like students where they're writing essays and stuff, you get told to give feedback in this format called the shit sandwich, which is where you give a compliment and then a criticism and then a compliment. Like every time you give a criticism, you surround it with like cushioning to make it more pleasant. And that's kind of how you're often told to give feedback in universities and schools. I think it doesn't work. And it particularly doesn't work when you're giving feedback to someone who is really kind of, you know, in a kind of Dunning-Kruger syndrome place and doesn't realize how bad they are. Because if you do that, if you do the shit sandwich, right, the bread is the compliments. The bread is either side, critique is in the middle. If you do that, then people... Some types of people will just ignore the criticism and focus on the bread, on the cushioning around it. So I don't know. I think giving feedback, you always should be sensitive, and check that they want it. But if someone clearly wants feedback, then you don't want to cushion it too much, because then they'll just think you're complimenting them. Definitely no perfect way of doing it though, and it depends what sort of people you're dealing with. Right, we do need another eggy, because someone over here needed 2 eggs. Happy Tuesday, X. Who was it who wanted 2 eggs? There you are. This person wants 2 eggs and 3 potatoes. They have a sort of vegetarian breakfast planned with some rosh tea or something like that. I don't know. Mystic Thistle said that's called the serial position effect. People remember the first and last item in the list the most. I've never heard it called that. That's really interesting. Oh, we've got a bumblebee. I have to fight it to get some honey. I need to get 5 fighting points. So what happens is when you have a fighting thing on here, you roll a 4-sided dice, which is what that little... I would make that dice symbol a little bit more kind of brightly coloured, because it doesn't stand out very much. I would make it like red or blue or something, just so it really stands out from the rest of the game. I know the game is going for a limited palette, but that's like a key object, I think, when... Because all of these other things, when you click on them, if you don't have the item, you just don't make the conversion. But when you've got a battle thing like here... I think either having the die red or having this speech bubble in a different colour, so it's very clear this is a more of a risk chance based thing you're doing here. But that's cool. But yeah, Mystic Thistle, there's a really interesting parallel to that in music. If you're in a band and you're making a set for a live gig, people often tell you that people remember the beginning and the end the most, so you have to make a good first impression, make sure you have a good end impression, I don't know what you call that, because people don't remember the middle of the set as much as the beginning or the end. I didn't know there was a name for it. Serial position effect. That's cool. So we're gonna need some sheep wool to make Mr. Farmer happy, but the sheep wool was in the previous level, and we need a hammer to get that for some reason. I think a hammer just kind of represents work or craft in this game. It's not explicitly a hammer. So you can start to see more of how you're going to have to dip in and out of different levels and remember what's there. He gives us a potion for 3 coins. Some of these... So we're already reaching a point where we don't really need to get everything. And we need to make decisions about which things to activate or interact with. We need to get a fork on this level as well. I think one of these people is who's going to give me a fork. So I would have to have a weapon to fight the bee, because I can't actually score 5 in combat because I've only got D4 plus 1. So I have a 1 in 4 chance of rolling a 4, adding a 1 to it, and getting 5. Which I could get, but I'd rather come back when I have a weapon. That will give me honey. But I need 4 honeys to make this person happy. Maybe she'll give me a fork, or maybe he'll give me a fork. But we need potatoes, and this level does not have potatoes in it. Ooh! That was such a pleasant surprise. I don't know why I didn't think that clicking on the door would make it pop open and have a little guy come out. That was way more exciting than it should be. I mean, you put a thing from like a children's pop-up book in a video game, and suddenly I'm the most excited person. So he needs some milk. I think we could. Can we get another milk on this? Yeah, we've got. Okay, so hello, I'm here to bring you some milk. Yeah, fork. Was there someone who wanted a fork? No, that's just one of the things, the missions on this level. I think we've done everything we can do here for a while, and it's like... Yeah, I'm gonna come back and fight those bees later. So this little armor symbol down here is like our kind of character build. And... Ah, the person who wanted loot on the previous level, that is actually a skill check. So you've got skill checks down here. And you've got a red one, a blue one, and a purple one. Yeah, I would also make these dye the colour of the skill check. Just, I think this yellow colour, this sort of beigey yellow, is used so much in the game. You just make it a lot clearer. Or again, when I go on here, keep the dye yellow, but have that speech bubble in the skill check colour. So we've got work. I guess this is like craft, speed, sort of artsy-fartsy stuff, defense and attack. And that's showing us the range. So D4 plus 1, it can go between 2 and 5. Okay. And as we progress through the game... So if I use that, it equips it. Okay. So these items that are in the weapon panel, when I click on them, they change my stats over here. So the fork is more powerful. You know that old adage? The pen is mightier than the sword? Well, in this game, the fork is mightier than the club. Basically means the same thing, though. I think. I don't know why people say the pen is mightier than the sword, because if you've ever tried to fight someone with a pen when they've got a sword, I think generally speaking you'll find you'll lose, unless you're just really good at stabbing people with a pen. Where are we now? We're in a lovely forest. I think when it gets this big, I'd love to have like some kind of upgrade on my finger where I can click on an object and it will trigger all of the adjacent ones. Yeah, Mystic Thistle just made the point that when you swap your weapons like this, it would be good if this opened automatically, just so you can understand what's going on. I kind of agree. We've got some barbarians over here. Got to fight them. And then you get some money. He hurt me. So, like, having an animation on that heart just to make it clear that it's getting damaged would be helpful. Who's in here? So we've got healing potions. We've got a cat and a rat. What does that want? Is that a feather? He wants a cheese, naturally. Ah, that's their health on there. Okay. I think. So that guy, you have to beat him twice. There's a bit of a nasty, sort of harsh stop in the music on this game. I don't know how you rectify that, really. So this level has some sort of amulet in it and some sort of birdie thing. Oh, is that doll or yeah? Is it just those red trees that give you wood, or is it any tree? Get that cheese. Give that cheese to that mouse. Or rat. Sorry, if I got your species wrong. The cat had a key. There's lots and lots of lovely sort of opportunities in this game for surprise, which I think is a very underrated thing in games generally. Ooh. We got a cape. Does that mean I can equip that? And yes. So we have a paper doll. The cape increases your blue. I mean, that says defense. Does that mean that it comes into play when I do a fighting with one of these guys? Or is it its own skill check? Take that, you hooligan. Okay, I've got 9 gems. So it looks like the demo only goes up to these points, but I think maybe I can go back to some of these earlier areas now. Right, this was our first sort of learning area. I think these first few levels do a really nice job of showing you the concept in miniature and then very quickly getting to the full scale of like an overwhelmingly complex looking level. I think if you ramp up to that too slowly, then it's going to feel like a children's game. And this is the kind of game where you do want it to be appropriate for children, but you don't necessarily want it to be marketed as a children's game that's only for children. I have looked at some games like that before where it's been like, I don't know, do you expect adults to be into this? And I think this is a game for adults that just looks like a child could play it rather than... I think it's a subtle distinction, but I think this is doing that kind of quite well. Right, so I might need to come back to this one to get the sheep wool. I think maybe one of the things I would struggle with is, like, this location marker doesn't give me a very clear indicator that that's also got sheep in it, right? So I think when I'm making those meta decisions about, like, oh, I need to go back to that level and take this to that person, I think having a little bit of a clearer sense of place from these markers, because this is like a field of wheat, right? And we do have our first field of wheat here. But I think representing that level as a field of wheat with some sheep in it or something would be better. The cow, it's like there's cows in other areas, but I think that's the only area with sheep in for the moment. I'm not sure. So he's got a mystery item, so maybe I just need to beat these guys. I've got plenty of potions, so... Definitely the kind of combat that would feel too simple in any other context, but here it's kind of perfect. I wouldn't want anything more complicated for the combat than this, for a game like this. My medallion! Hi, Morswin. Am I saying it right? Frederick thinks that the sheepies look too abstract compared to the boars that have a little face. I kind of agree, maybe. Let's go back. Let's go and... Let's compare those animals. The piggies have a nose. I don't know, but yeah, they do look a bit like Japanese rice balls. I'll agree with you there. So I think we've worked out that this hammer symbol means, like, I don't know, your character's sort of craftsmanship or something. I don't think it's meant to be hitting a sheep with a hammer to get wool out of it. It's not a sort of animal cruelty kind of game, you know? So yeah, one of the big tweaks I would make is you have these colours associated with these skill areas, and when I go to do this, I would, for the first couple of levels of the game, before I'd seen this little menu, I didn't realise there was a skill that was the loot and a skill that was the hammer. So I would make this whole speech bubble come up in purple to link it to this. She's given me a glove. Thanks. This person wants some flowers. But I don't have any flowers. He turns your apples into a little potion. He's like a cider guy. I definitely got a 3 on one of those attacks, but yeah, I might have some very swingy luck today. Right, we've got some sheep wool now. Right, listen. I have been far and wide across these lands to collect you these fine specimens of sheep wool. and I'm willing to give them to you now, but I don't think it's fair that I don't know what you're going to give me back. That feels, I don't know. You feel a bit shifty, you know. You're just wandering around with your outline sinking into the ground beneath you, hanging out outside someone else's caravan, and you come to me and you say, give me 3 sheep wool. And what do you give me in return? Oh, actually, that's kind of what you would expect. Yeah, I'll have that. What does it do? I don't know. Maybe we can't even use it in the demo. But let's take a moment to appreciate this baby cow. It's just like its mum, but it's smaller. And its moo has been pitched up, which is quite charming. Frederick made a very valid point that when you're using a skill like art or craft, you're still damaging their health, which feels a bit weird, and I agree. I think it gives a nice clear interaction language of like, you need to make this thing go down to beat this character, but I don't know. I think, yeah, using your attack skill to get rid of hearts makes sense, but maybe there could be another way of communicating that. I don't know what the answer is. Sometimes it's better to just identify the problem rather than come up with the solution. Right, we're going to try and fight some bees. We're going to fail at fighting some bees. Gotta roll 4s. And I haven't seen a place in the demo where I can get a better weapon. Hang on. I've got a glove. What does that do? That makes my craft better. Crafty glove. Who will help me with these turbulent bees? There you go. Consider adding it to your Steam wish list. I will. I think I already have. But I want to get all of the honey. I want to finish this bit. That's always a good sign anyway. You get to the end of the demo and you kind of want to carry on doing it. Listen, bee. I've had enough of your buzzing around. Who wanted the honey? Do I have the link handy? That is a good question. Yeah, let's pop the link in the thing. I do think maybe slightly more subdued minimalist music might work well with this game. Yeah, we're doing a extreme murder run now. We're going to kill everything in the game. Ah, potatoes. Potatoes and seeds that we get from those plants. definitely feel very compelled to do some completionism on this, which is not a thing I often feel. I think it's because it's such a sort of task list kind of game, and those do often inspire this kind of I must do all the things. If I was developing this game, I'd definitely be thinking about how to make it work really well on the Switch. Because this is what we in the industry like to refer to as a Switch-ass game. I just immediately imagine the Switch audience really liking this. Because it's cute. I think if you're making a cute game, if you're making a game that is in the slightest bit cute or cozy, you should be thinking about what your Switch build of that game looks like very early on. Because it's likely to be a place where you could get lots of pennies. That's also an industrial term. Oh, we haven't killed the barbarians yet. Listen. I've had enough of you hanging out around this cave, monopolizing the ravens on skulls. It's time you got clicked on. I feel like another thing that would work really well in this is if you had things that weren't clickable until you'd got rid of other things. So with those guys, they're guarding this, right? And it doesn't actually do anything if I click on this. But it'd be really good if clicking on this did do something, but I couldn't activate it until I got rid of those three guys. So you have like stepped levels of reward where there's three guys, you get a micro reward from beating each of them, and then when you've done all three of them, then you can unlock that next thing. It's a very simple thing, but I think it would do some feel-good factor. We're not ending the stream until every murderable thing in this demo has been murdered. He's a boss man. The horse is like, don't click me, bro, I'm just a horse. I've done nothing wrong. I didn't have any games planned after this one, but we do have a bit more time, so I think maybe we'll find something after this. I have another key. But I know not where to use my key. Let's go back. That was the one I just came from, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. Excuse me, do you have a treasure chest here? Got milk? It's a rhythm game now. Crisp Crypt of the Necro Rancher. I should get bonus for doing that, I think. We've got some game dev questions in the chat. I'm going to answer them in a minute. When I'm just obsessively looking for a treasure chest that I've missed. But I think what's happened is I've got a key, and there's nothing else in the demo for me to unlock with that key. It would be really good if some of the like hidden object elements of the core game were applied in here as well, so that you could have like a hidden level somewhere. You know, that would be cool. Right, I've had this treasure chest open. Yeah, I don't think we've got any other chests we can get. So yeah, we've got a game dev question in the chat. That's quite a good question. So someone said, could you give some advice on how to fight against the urge to increase the scope of a game outside of the initial plan? It's too easy to do so and very tempting, especially when brainstorming. I mean, if you're brainstorming, then you're still making the initial plan, aren't you? I think, so one of the things you do when you're like working in sort of, I guess, in a serious commercial way, is you would have like a backlog of what you're doing. I'm just going to get a spreadsheet open and let's have a quick look. Let's do that as our... I don't really want to go and randomly find another game to play, so let's just do like a 20-minute sort of game production workshop towards the end here. What I need is Google Sheets. Because this is a very good question. There we go. I'm just trying to get Google Sheets up without accidentally opening up some stuff you're not supposed to see. Like that. No. Right. There we go. That's what we want. Here we go. Old man attempts to use 2 screens at once. Fails miserably. There we go. So question in the chat, it's kind of a production management question about like how do you... It's a general question, I guess, about scope creep, right? Of like how do you avoid scope creep and avoid agreeing to make a game that is bigger than what you initially planned to do. And this is a difficult question because sometimes the stuff you come up with and you go, oh, that's a cool idea, it is stuff that you would need to do to make your game, you know, appealing enough to bother doing anything with. But one of the things I would do, and I've seen this done in lots of places where I've worked, is you would have a spreadsheet kind of like this, and you would have tasks. So, I mean, I guess features more than tasks. So, describe your features that you want to do, right? So, player can click on items to trigger them. I'm just going to imagine that we take the game that we just played, and let's just imagine that we are designing that game. And if I get Steam open and just minimize that down a little bit so we've got it in the corner. So we'll pretend that we're designing Seeking Adventure, right? And Frederick made a good point that if you've got a common goal as a team, then it can be easier for this type of thing. And that's kind of one of the reasons why you would have project pillars of like, what are you trying to do with that, right? And then let's have a feature when player clicks items, they have unique sound effects, right? So these are linked features, but they are slightly different. They achieve different things. And then you would have like why are you doing that? Like reason or rationale over here. And if you were working in like a really corporate game development kind of environment, like in a, I don't know, like free-to-play studios are like this, right? You would have your reason or rationale would be one of your KPIs, one of your key performance indicators. So it'd be something like monetization or engagement or retention, right? These are the three ones that you use in really corporate game dev. So engagement is getting people to enjoy the game in the first place. Retention is getting people to stay in the game, and monetization is getting them to spend money after they're in the game. And you wouldn't have that in an indie game because you're working on the assumption that you're making a premium game and that people are going to have bought your game before they play it. So these would be the project pillars, right? Of like which thing are we trying to do? But in an indie context, you're dealing with player stuff that is a bit less commercial and a bit more kind of feels based. So what you would do is you would have your list of features that you want to do in your backlog, and then you would have like categories that you put them in of like what do they do? And this one would be like core gameplay, and this one would be, I don't know, let's make this even bigger because it's tiny writing. So player can click on items to trigger them is core gameplay, right? The game we just played doesn't make sense, doesn't work if you can't do that. Whereas when player clicks items, they have unique sound effects. That is still important, but it's a different category of stuff. It's like feedback and juice or whatever you want to call it. And then what I would do is like color code these things. And that means that as you come up with all the things you want to do in your project, you can put them in categories like this. And then one of the things you can do, and the problem that this is coming from in terms of like the person in the chat who's made this request, you said you had an initial plan, a few artists wanted to join, now they're pressing to add more things to the already agreed upon idea, right? So what I would do is create something like this that you can use as a tool, add all of the ideas in, whether you like them or not, and categorize them. And from there, rather than sort of like pushing back on things in the moment and saying, right, we're not doing that, you can store it for later. And then if you do have some kind of disciplined way of working in sprints, and if you're in an indie team, I would do it based on month. Like in this month, here's what we're hoping to achieve by the end of the month. And maybe it's like, maybe you work for 3 weeks and then you review, and the last week is just about like playtesting the game and coming up with ideas and discussing what you've done so far. Whatever the cadence is, what you do is for each block of time, you then go back to this list and you go through it and you say, right, what's the priority for the next build? We're focusing on that. And then you would pick items off of here. And then maybe you would like, let me just wrap this so you can see more of it in one go. And then you could kind of put like something here to indicate which of these you're doing at the moment. So you would say status on hold, in progress, done, that kind of thing. But if you have a full log of everything that's been suggested, then what you can do, instead of having to push back on individual people coming up with ideas and say, we're not doing that. Because the other thing is, some of those ideas might be really good. Some of those ideas might be like the secret sauce that make the game that you're working on like really special. And having them recorded is important because you might not be able to see why they're good ideas right at this moment. And I would say if you're on a project where you are like the lead developer and you're doing everything, you're having to code everything yourself, and you've got artists working with you, and your artists are starting to come up with game design ideas, that is probably a blessing in disguise. Because I have worked on so many projects where the artists just see themselves as work for hire, and they don't take a great amount of interest in the gameplay side of things. They don't take a great amount of interest in trying to sort of ideate and come up with ideas for like interactive elements in the game and stuff like that. So it might be frustrating having to deal with that that issue of too many cooks spoil the broth. Everyone's trying to come up with ideas, everyone's trying to add stuff to the project. But I think that is probably a good sign that you're working with good people, because they care enough about the project to see it as a whole thing. You know, they want to add things to the game, they want the whole game to be bigger and better. And I've worked with lots of visual artists who do not think that way about games. They just see it as a task, and they make some art assets and they make what they're told. And I think a lot of people think that's the kind of artist they want to work with, but it becomes very frustrating and very stagnant very quickly working with people like that, because you occasionally want someone to feed back on something, and if all they care about is how the thing they made looks and not the whole thing, that's very frustrating. So yeah, I would say have a way like this of basically taking in every idea, and then you're killing two birds with one stone then, because you're saying to people, look, your idea has been heard, I've recorded and stored your idea, and also for yourself, you're making sure you don't lose any of those ideas of what people want to do, because you've got them recorded. And then you can look at them maybe a month later and go, oh, actually, that is a really good idea, and we do have time to do it now. And I would have pushed back on it when they first suggested doing that, because I'm worried about how much time we have, or like what there is to do. But if you go down this route of just storing all the ideas that people have, categorizing them, and then like giving them a status. So here I would have, I think in Google you can turn these into little drop downs. Yeah, drop downs. There we go. So yeah, in Google Sheets you can make them into, in progress would be blue, done would be, I don't know, on hold would be something, and you can, you know, categorize things this way. And then every block of time you commit to, whether you're doing sprints of 2 weeks or a month or however long those time periods are, where you say, right, this is what we're doing now. During that time period, you set all the stuff you're doing to in progress. And if you've got some other way of managing a team, like a Trello board or something, that's when you fill up the board with this list of stuff. But if you've got this kind of backlog, then everyone knows that the ideas they come up with are being heard, are being listened to and kind of weighed up. And if you put things into categories like this of like, what does it serve? Like, it might be that these are your game pillars from your game design document of like your 3 things you're trying to achieve. Like, so this, maybe it's not categories like core gameplay and feedback and juice. Maybe, you know, one of the things I often tell people to do is base your game design pillars on the 14 forms of fun, because often when people try and come up with design pillars for games, they just like name game genres and stuff like that. And I think actually picking 3 things off of this list to be the focus of your game. So I could say, when players clicks items, they have unique sound effects, is actually an immersion thing. And player can click on items to trigger them is, I don't know, maybe that's actually just as a core gameplay thing that the game can't exist without. And then there's other categories that are more to do with like satisfying some sort of design pillar. And if you put things in categories like this, then when you come to this stage of working out what to do, what's on hold, then you can like say, oh well, we're gonna focus on immersion this month, so we're just gonna do, everyone is gonna be adding sound effects or adding VFX or doing stuff that makes the world feel more real. And you can have a month where you just focus on one of these areas of your game, right? Or if you want the whole game moving along, it can be structured a different way, where, you know, you come to work out what to do next, and you look at these categories and you pick a few things from each category and you say, well, we're going to do a few new core gameplay things, and we're going to go back and add these kind of immersive sound effects and VFX to other things, right? But to kind of, yeah, like, so the illustrious Crane in the chat said this is better than like flat out discouraging people from by saying stuff is out of scope, right? Because it is a really difficult balance, because you don't want to overscope, and when you have a group project with lots of people working on it, people like excitedly going, and we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this, is dangerous, right? Because if you say yeah, right, like there's the brainstorming rule of yes and, which is what you use in what's it called, improv. improv acting, where someone says something and you say yes, and so you agree to what already was said, and then you move on from there. And that's kind of one of the things you're supposed to do in brainstorming, because if you block every idea, then people kind of lock up and they stop coming up with ideas, right? But I think having some sort of system for saying, right, all of the ideas go here, and then on this day and this day and this day, we're going to look at all the ideas, work out what our overall goal is, and pick which of those ideas to kind of get moving on and action in some way. And then people, if you have this list and there's someone whose ideas never get picked, then over time they're probably going to get annoyed with that. But you're at least giving them the opportunity to kind of have their ideas seriously considered, rather than just kind of flat out saying no to everything as soon as it's suggested. So, yeah. I'm glad that that's kind of a useful approach. Maybe see how you get on with it. Let me know how you get on with approaching things that way. Hopefully it's useful. But as I said, like, if you have a team where no one is coming up with ideas and no one seems interested in like contributing to the world building or the gameplay or the creative side of things, that can be really disheartening in its own right. So you've got these kind of two extremes of like it's kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? The porridge that's too hot or too cold or just right. Like, a team that is too hot is kind of the thing you're describing. Like, everyone is really excited about the game. Everyone wants to throw loads of ideas in. And if you let them, it's going to become this horrible mess of stuff that, like, even if you have the capacity to pull all of that off, and people can, like, do all of the things on the list, you still haven't necessarily assessed it all to see if it goes together, right? So if everyone is constantly suggesting new ideas and you let them do those ideas, even if they're the best artists and programmers in the world, then you're still going to come across this issue of like, this doesn't all go together as a design. So that's the kind of issue of having a team that's kind of too hot, the team that is too enthusiastic and like overboils kind of thing. And then the other end of it is definitely something I've experienced, where the team is cold and everyone just gets on with their little tasks that they're told to do, and no one is like passionately involved in ideating around the project or combining ideas. And you're trying to aim for this like Goldilocks porridge in the middle of people are encouraged to contribute ideas, people are enthusiastic about contributing ideas, but there are some checks and balances in place. And you're not just saying to people, I don't want extra ideas, this is what we're doing, we're not deviating from the plan. But you also don't want to get too stuck into the kind of yes and of just, accepting every idea that comes your way, because that's where you're going to end up with either something that you can't achieve because you're trying to do too much stuff, or something that you can achieve but it's a mess because it's just too many things. It's like you've got a band and everyone is trying to play a solo at the same time. It stops being a solo, it's just a mess, that kind of thing. Frederick said, regarding the 14 forms of fun, do I have a list of recommended resources? I have things I return to again and again and again. I think we could probably start compiling a list somewhere. Yeah, I'm setting up a website for Indie Game Clinic in the next month or so, and I think maybe we could put something there. But I think the appropriateness of resources all just sort of depends where people are with what they're doing, right? Like, the question that we just got is coming from a very specific context of like someone who is already making something and working with other people, and that kind of person has a very different set of needs to someone who's just like designing their first games on their own and stuff like that. So I think having a list of resources somewhere is a good idea. But I don't know. There are a lot of things like that exist already, and I'm very wary about like reproducing stuff, I think one of the best things you can do is just go on whatever parts of the GDC vault are freely available. I know a lot of it's on YouTube now, and just watching like a random thing that sounds interesting from GDC each week, or do the opposite, like try and pick the stuff you don't gravitate towards. So if you find project management really boring, like, try and find the GDC talks that are about that and just make yourself sit through 1 or 2 a week. So yeah, thank you all for joining, and I'm just going to plug some of what we've got coming up, because I always forget to do that, because I'll just get lost in the moment. So what we've got coming up on Thursday, a little bit earlier than today, we're going to be doing Fade. I don't know if anyone's seen anything about this game, but it looks very impressive. It is made by a solo developer, and it is a kind of Souls-like. Let's take a quick look at the trailer. It's a Souls-like, which is taking some of its inspiration from Fable, and it will be a sort of demo first impression stream. I haven't played it at all. I don't know anything about it apart from that it looks cool. And
a long shadow has been cast, tearing the residents from their homes. Awaken as the chosen, a champion with no memory of their past, but a shared destiny with the twisted fate of the land.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what this game is going to be like. It looks like a very kind of well pitched game in terms of like the tone of what it's doing as well. Fade title kerning, is it bad? Yeah, that gap. Look at that gap. That's pretty bad. It's got the London look, that title. But it looks really cool. And I think there's some stuff about the creative direction of this game where it's kind of deliberately cheesy. And I think that's always a good thing to go for, particularly if you're doing high fantasy.
Foes with various fighting styles and weapon options. Fight tooth and nail before it's too late, or all things shall fade.
You told me once before, it's the way of the world. All is right in God's design. Then, let's see what God has to say.
Looks fun, right? So it's like a Soulsborne, but with some kind of cheesy, Fable, Dragon Age-y kind of colourful vibes in there as well. So going to check that out on Thursday. And what I want to start doing is on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, I'll schedule a stream like the one we've done today, check out the demo of a game, and then we can do what we just did. If someone has a question that maybe takes a bit longer to answer or needs some examples or whatever, we can do like a little 20-30 minute explainer at the end. I'm just trying to get into the habit of streaming a bit more regularly, because it's a very hard thing to do if you just do it randomly in fits and starts. And I also want to play more demos of games that are sort of already out, a little bit more polished, because I spend quite a lot of time playing people's prototypes when they're in a very early stage, because that's kind of what the channel is about, or at least what Indies Under the Knife is about. So yeah, I want to make sure that we vary things up a little bit, and I kind of get to play some stuff that's a little bit more polished. I think it will bring more people to the channel as well to have some stuff like this. I tend to find when we do Indies Under the Knife that how much the how much attention each video gets varies quite a bit based on just how good the thumbnail looks in terms of the game. I think when it comes to like getting, you know, your average gamer to look at an early review of a game, I'm just going to see if I can find some data on that. It really comes down to just like how interesting the art or the theme is to people, I guess. So like Alchemist Alcove got, oh, you can't, I'm zoomed out. Zoom this out a bit. Alchemist Alcove, 1,000 views, and then I don't know which of these has been the most popular so far. horror one did okay. Brutal Bible Bloodbaths didn't do very well, even though I went all out on doing the YouTuber face in the thumbnail. There are no shortcuts. You can't just pull the YouTuber face and then people watch. So yeah, come back on Thursday and we'll check out Fade. And we'll also be doing, we've got another Indies Under the Knife coming on Thursday, which is, let me check out what the game is. So basically, as soon as the stream ends on Thursday, there'll be an episode of Indies Under the Knife, which is going to be... What's it called? I'm 2 weeks ahead on those reviews. Champagne, which was a cute little game about monks making wine. Which is got this very strange thumbnail where it says, "Brother, let us produce some wine," which is not actually... This art isn't anything to do with the game. So yeah, that's the plan for the next week or two, and we'll be doing Indies Under the Knife. Will be like coming out at noon every Thursday for a while. I've set a funding target on Kickstarter, not Kickstarter, on Patreon. That what if at some point it gets up to £1,000 a month, then we'll do Indies Under the Knife twice a week. Because I have so many games in that backlog, and I do want to cover them, but those episodes take quite a lot to make. Yeah, Jordan, I don't know if you left that feedback before about making Indies Under the Knife into a series. It's difficult because, like, if you look into like SEO for YouTube, you know, if I put this video, if I put this through a SEO thing, this is too long already. And I've tried like every video title format. I mean, let's just do it now, right? Let's Indies Under the Knife. Let's just do an experiment. Jordan, this is your fault if it goes wrong. I'm just going to call it Indies Under the Knife, Champagne, and just see how that happens this time. And because I'm a boomer, I want a knife emoji. And because I'm a boomer, I'm going to Google the emoji because I still haven't worked out a better way to put emojis in stuff. Someone asked me recently, like, how do you put emojis in things? Like, how do you get an emoji when you're on a computer? And I was like, I Google it. So, this will be an experiment for this Thursday. I put Indies Under the Knife here. And if this does well, then have a good day. Yeah, if this does well, then Jordan gets all of the credit. But I'm going to try this. I'm going to experiment with this week and see how it goes. But yeah, I think it's difficult because the idea of like a series needs tens of thousands of people watching it for people to kind of get what the thing is. Because this isn't very self-explanatory. Like, I review your games that are being made is something where people know what that is and they can click on it, whereas this is more like a brand, or it's like if you don't know what it is, then maybe it needs a better name. Maybe it needs a name that's more clearly what it is, but we'll see. I kind of like that it's called Under the Knife because it sounds like tense, right? It sounds surgical and perhaps a bit dangerous, but yeah, I mean, you've seen how people title YouTube videos, right? Like, even when it's like something that should be a big deal, like let's do some competitor research. Let's look at right, Ken Levine interview on Thomas Brush's podcast, right? Like, Ken Levine is like one of the most famous game developers of the last 20 years, and his name is so far back in the title that if you were looking at this on a phone, you wouldn't even see that it was Ken Levine because YouTube SEO master Thomas Brush has made why his game has taken 10 years to make. That is the bit that's going to grab people's attention. Like the series, the Full-Time Game Dev podcast is right at the end, and even the Ken Levine is not at the front, right? This is really difficult stuff, and it's like it depends how wide the audience you're going for is. And YouTube is just super populist, and you kind of have to start with that initial thing. But even here, it's like I don't like this naming because it's like it's almost like you kind of trying to romanticize this idea of making a game that takes a long time to make, and it's like your audience are not AAA game developers, and Ken Levine is, right? So this is kind of weird because someone taking 10 years to make a game when they are running a studio that has funding and everyone gets paid a full-time wage to work on that game is very different from just like pottering around in your room for 10 years making a game. So I don't like these titles, and I wish that YouTube worked in such a way that it wasn't necessarily to name things in these kind of ways. But hey, that's the world we live in. Thank you for joining, and hopefully see some of you again on Thursday. And yeah, let's keep doing this on a Tuesday and a Thursday. I'll try and stick to that for at least a month so that people know they can expect it, and then we'll see how it goes. I might need the time for something else, but I really appreciate you all popping in, and let's play Fade on Thursday. It looks really cool. And if you like the look of Fade, check it out before then. I'm only going to be playing the demo. It's something everyone can play. So if you like Souls-likes, or if you like Fable, or if you like slightly campy looking high fantasy, then I think that might be one for you. So see you on Thursday for Fade. Farewell.